Demi Bennett made her professional wrestling debut when she was 17 years old, and just a little over 6 years later became the first woman to defend the NXT Women's Championship at WrestleMania. I'm Rick Ucchino, and this week's superstar under the spotlight is Rhea Ripley. Ripley, wrestling under her real name at the time, made her pro wrestling debut in 2013 when she began working for Riot City Wrestling based in Southern Australia. She would spend several years in that promotion, becoming a two-time RCW Women's Champion, and between 2014 and 2017, she would also make several appearances for New Horizon Pro Wrestling.
It's over 9,000!
Squaring off against some familiar names like Mercedes Martinez and Saraya Knight, the mother of former NXT and Divas champion Paige. It was also during this time that a rivalry would be born, as Ripley would defend her RCW title in Melbourne City Wrestling against Savannah Summers and a woman many WWE fans should know, Toni Storm. By 2017, Ripley would wrap up her time in RCW, walking away from that promotion still as their women's champion and moving overseas to WWE. Ripley first competed for the company in the inaugural Mae Young Classic, making it to the second round before bowing out to Dakota Kai. Fast forward to 2018, and once again Ripley is competing in the Mae Young Classic, but this time it's a much different Rhea Ripley. Vowing never to be called a Charlotte Flair doppelganger again, because apparently all blondes look alike to some people, Ripley cut her hair, threw on some tight leather, and started kicking major ass by her new take no prisoners attitude. She'd make it to the semi-finals before being knocked off by Io Shirai, but Ripley was really onto something after making wholesale changes to her character. She soon made her way over to the newly created NXT UK brand and won an 8-woman tournament to be crowned the inaugural NXT UK Women's Champion, beating her old friend, Toni Storm, in the finals and becoming the first Australian female champion in company history and the second Aussie ever, behind Buddy Murphy. The entire UK title tournament was recorded ahead of time, so even though she won the belt in August, it wasn't official until November, which means WWE only recognizes her reign as 44 days long, which is kind of a ripoff considering the other two women to hold that title had it well over 200 days, including the woman that Ripley dropped the belt to at TakeOver Blackpool. Guess who? Toni Storm. Ripley would make a splash on the main roster just a few weeks later, though, when she showed up as a surprise entrant in the 2019 Women's Royal Rumble. She would toss 3 women out of the ring, the second most eliminations in the match, tied with the woman who eliminated her, Bayley. Now, throughout the early part of 2019, Ripley was still on the NXT UK brand, feuding with newcomer Piper Niven over who was the most dominant woman on the roster. The two competitors would trade victories, eventually team up, but right around August, Ripley decided she had seen enough of the women's division in NXT being dominated by the Queen of Spades, Shayna Baszler, and she decided to do something about it. When Ripley showed up on the August 28th episode of NXT and swiped that microphone out of the hands of the two-time NXT Women's Champion, that was the catalyst for what would be one hell of a meteoric rise in the company. Running parallel to her feud with Shayna Baszler, Ripley was also now the appointed leader of Team NXT in the run through Survivor Series. Quite the push for someone who had literally been back on the brand for only a month, but the Nightmare handled the pressure wonderfully and was one of the stars of Survivor Series weekend. She led her team to victory in the first ever Women's War Games match against Team Baszler at the appropriately named TakeOver War Games, despite teammate Dakota Kai attacking Tegan Nox before they would enter the match, leaving Ripley and Candice LeRae at a 4-on-2 disadvantage. The next night at Survivor Series, Ripley would lead Team NXT to a relatively easy victory over both Team Raw and SmackDown in a 5-on-5-on-5 elimination match, taking out SmackDown's Sasha Banks last and standing tall with fellow survivors Candice LeRae and Io Shirai. Just a couple of weeks later, she would get the biggest win of her career, defeating Shayna Baszler to end her 416-day reign as champion. An absolutely incredible scene as the NXT locker room would storm down to the ring, hoist up the new champ on their shoulders, much to the delight of a raucous crowd at Full Sail Arena. Gosh, you guys, you remember crowds? You remember crowds? They're so great. Okay, they can kind of suck too. Anyway, Ripley made history with her win over Baszler, becoming the first woman to hold both the NXT and NXT UK Championships. Her first big challenge as champion would come at Worlds Collide in January when she took on, yep, you guessed it, Toni Storm, and successfully held on to her title. After a successful defense against Bianca Belair at TakeOver Portland, it was clear sailing, relatively speaking, to WrestleMania 36 and her date with her now not so much alleged doppelganger, Charlotte Flair. To many wrestling fans, this was one of the most highly anticipated matches on the card, and it absolutely delivered. Kicking off night 2 of the 2-day event this year, the Queen and the Nightmare put on a 20-minute slugfest that ultimately ended with the Queen forcing Ripley to tap out to the figure 8, ending her title run a lot sooner than many may have predicted. Regardless, while the Queen may now reign supreme on NXT, the future is incredibly bright for Rhea Ripley. Need I remind you? She's just 23. 23. She just had her first singles match at WrestleMania at 23. She's got the look, she's got the skill, she's got the drive. Guys, Rhea Ripley is going to be a living nightmare for her WWE opponents for years to come.
Out of the gate, coming her way.